Welcome to another session of INF154. So in this session, we are going to focus on the revision test 2. So these topics, lecture 1 up to lecture 3, are the easiest topics. So there's nothing much that we are going to do. So we are just going to go through the questions. So let's see what's up. So we are going to start with the first question. So the first question states a variable that stores whole numbers without decimals such as 122 or negative 311. Which variable will be appropriate for this? So we know that a variable that stores whole numbers is an integer. So the answer is A. So in general, you have to ask yourself, integers, they store whole numbers. Then strings, they store text, or they store a sequence, an array of characters. Then booleans, they store true or false. Then double, they store decimal numbers or numbers with decimals, and they can also store integers. So this was an easy question. So the next question, a variable that stores values with two states, true or false. We already answered this from this. So it's a boolean. So which naming convention would be used for an input text box? So we know that in general a text box is a txt. Then in this case we have this name input, so it must be txt input. So D is the correct answer. So NUD input represents numeric up down. CBX it's for the combo box, and BTN it's for your button. So we can move to the next question. So these ones are easy. So a computer program does three main actions. So we have the input, then the process or the processing, then the output. As an example, take a game on a cell phone. For instance, the popular Candy Crush. So the first question is to describe what kinds of inputs this program takes. So we know that for any game, the user has to enter something on the keyboard. So the keyboard presses, or the keyboard keys that the user presses to move game elements, those are your inputs. So for the next question B, describe what kind of processing this program takes. So for the process, we have to consider the calculations that the game engine makes to produce new states or to produce new results. Then for part C, we have to describe what kind of output this program gives. So for the output, we have to consider the new positions or the new states that match the screen graphics. Basically, in general, it's just the new screen or the new positions, the new game positions produced by the engine during calculations. That's your output. So this question was not that challenging. It wanted you to think a little bit. So question 5, you have to write a program, you need to do some planning first. Put the following steps in the correct order. So we know that in general, to when you are doing your program, you have to understand the problem, then you have to come up with your inputs, then your process, your outputs, then you have to do the pseudocode, you have to do whatnot. But let's see these ones. So we have to draw the flow diagram, or write pseudocode to depict the flow program, decide on the purpose of the program, design the interface, test the program with many possible kinds of inputs, translate the flow diagram into code, decide what input, processing, and output is necessary. So with regards to these steps, the first thing that you have to do is to decide on the purpose of the program. This is understanding what your program has to do. So this is your first step. Then after deciding on the purpose, that's where you can go decide what inputs, processes, and outputs are necessary to perform that specific purpose. So this will be your second task. Then after this, you can draw a flow diagram or write pseudocode to depict the program flow. So you can either draw the flow diagram or write pseudocode to depict the program flow. So pseudocode is not like a complete code. So it's sort of like a general description of a flow chart or a program flow. So whenever you write a pseudocode, you are not considering C#. Like it's a general description that can be translated into C++, Python, and other languages. This is your your third actually step. Then design the interface. This is your fourth step. Then the fifth step is to translate the flow diagram into code. That's your fifth step. Then the last step is to test the program with many possible kinds of inputs. So with regards to this, consult your lecture 3 slides. I think they explain it better when it comes to this. Then we can move to the next question. So for the following line of codes, indicate if it is an example of a variable declaration, input, processing, or output. We know that a variable declaration is when you declare your variables. Input is when you get inputs from your form. Then the processing is your calculations. Then output is when you display the result on a list box, rich text box, message box, whatever. So lst.items.add, then temperature in degrees. So we are adding something to a list box. So this should be our output. It's not a process because it affects the output of the form. So this must be our output. Then double temperature in degrees. So when we see a data type, automatically it's a declaration. So we are declaring this temperature in degrees. Initially it didn't exist. So we are telling a compiler that we are creating this specific variable, which is a double or which stores double data type. Then temperature in Fahrenheit equals to 9/5 multiplied by temperature in degrees plus 32. So this one is a process because we are performing some calculations. Then temperature in degrees equals to convert this was a typo. So in this case it's to double txt_temp.text. We are getting something from our form. So this is an input. So that's how you were supposed to answer these questions. Then for question 7, we have this: what could go wrong with the following line of code? So input value equals to convert to double txt number.text. So in this case, there are many things that can go wrong with. In this case, we don't know the value. Let's say we didn't know the data type of input value. So this could be a string. Then we are saying convert to double. So that's a possible error that can occur. Then another common error, when you are converting something from like a text box to an integer or a double, the user can enter like alphabets which are not convertible to doubles or integers. So in this case, if the user enters an invalid number or an invalid decimal, we are going to get an error. Your program is going to crash. So that's how you are supposed to answer that. Then question 8, we have: after planning a program, we can translate the planned steps into commands and write them into a click event handler, such as in the following figure. So we have this btn calculate, then declaring variables, get input and convert, then calculate total amount, convert what. So these are comments. So why do we write these comments and not just start coding? So here in general, here they are asking about the purposes of comments. So when it comes to comments, the first function of comments is to structure our code. So the main purpose of comments is to structure our codes. Then they help us, or they remind us what we should write. For example, if we say declare variables, we know that this helps us to remember that in under this we have to declare our variables. Get input, under this we have to, it reminds us to do that. So the next thing, the most important thing that comments do is it make it makes it easier for other programmers or people to follow our code or to read our code. So those are the properties of comments. Then we move to question 9. So a variable that stores values with two states, true or false, we already answered this. This is a Boolean. So for question 10, we have to consider this. So this is a message box, then it has a message, then it has this error, which is a sort of heading. Write a line of code that display the above message. So to do that, you can, let me do this, something like this. Let me, so we know that when we say message box dot show, then we say please enter the temperature or the temperature. It's going to display a message saying please enter the temperature. But in this case we have this heading error, so we have to accommodate that error. So you have to put another parameter here, then you say error. This specifies the heading of your message box. So that's why it was like 2 marks. 1 mark for this, then 1 mark for including this. So that's how you were supposed to answer that. Let me close this. Then for question 11, use the flowchart below and write the code in the event handler btn display sum. So we have this start. We know that these ovals represents the starting or the ending point. So for start, then we have read 4 numbers from the screen. Then we have to read 4 numbers from the screen, calculate the sum, multiply by 100, then display the result. So assume that you have created 4 text boxes called, here it was supposed to be txt, so txt num1 to txt num4 to get the numbers from the user, and the following variables have been declared. So we have int num1, int num2, int num3, then in general it's here. So we have declared these numbers, then double sum. We want to follow this flow chart, so I can do this. So we have something like this. So we have these numbers. So to complete the missing code, we have to follow this flowchart. So before we can read the numbers, we have to, okay, reading the numbers is getting the numbers from the text box. So I'm going to have num1 equals to, then I can say txt num1, because they said what, we have 4 text boxes, txt num1 to txt num4. So dot text the num1, it's an integer, then dot text it's a string. So this is not possible. On my left I have an int, on my right I have a string. So I have to convert this. I have to convert this to int 32 so that I can successfully store the number that's inside the text box inside this num. So it's the same thing. Num2 equals to convert then to int32 txt num2 dot text. you just repeat the same process. num3 equals to convert, then to int32, then txt num3.text, and the last one you just do the same thing. num4 equals to convert, then to int32, then txt num4, then you just say your dot text. That's the same thing. Then we successfully read 4 numbers from the screen. Calculate the sum. So for the sum, you just say sum is equals to num1 plus num2 plus num3. It's not a difficult thing, plus num4. Then the next step is to what? Divide the result by 100. So this is your thing. Then show the result. You can say maybe you can display the result anywhere, whether it's on a list box, rich text box. They didn't specify here that we have to like output the sum to where. So in this case, I'm just going to choose, like, let's say we have a txt. You can choose a message box. It's also valid. So sum is equal dot text is equals to, then I can say sum is equals to, then I can say plus my sum. This will work fine. So this is how you were supposed to approach that specific question. So in this case, sum it's a double, then these ones are numbers. So the result will always be a whole number, but in this case, there's no need to convert, since this sum can store both, since a double can store both integers and doubles. So I guess they didn't care that much with the conversion part because it's their fault. Then question 12, what is wrong with the following code? Give the possible solution if there's any issues. So we have const double frac equals to 1/6. So in this case, we are dividing two integers, 1/6. So since we are dividing two integers, this is integer division. So 1/6 is 0.1666667, something like that. But because this is integer division, the answer will be 0. So the wrong thing is that they used integers. They were supposed to say 1,0/6.0 to get the fraction. Or they were supposed to just type 0.1666666, then 7, something like that. The issue here is that we are performing integer division, so the result will be 0. Then question 13. So for question 13, we have this. In the application below, the user can convert kilograms into pounds or grams. Depending on the radio button option they select, list 4 variables that are required for this program to work, along with a data type and a keyword where applicable. Use appropriate names for your variables. So the main variables that we need to do this application are your inputs. So we only have one input here. So the input will be it can be a double or an integer. So in this case, let's just say it's an integer. So the input, we can say input, enter your kilograms. You can say we can say int kilograms, something like that. Then they said we are only declaring. So the next thing that we need is the output, maybe int pounds. Then another thing that we need is int maybe grams, to calculate the grams or pounds. Then another thing that we need is constants that will allow us to convert from grams to pounds, and a constant that will allow us to convert from kilograms to grams. So we can say const int grams maybe to kilo, in this case it's kilogram. So we need kilogram, 2, maybe 2 grams, something like this. 2 grams equals to, you can enter any random value if you don't know the actual like values. Then const again, in this case int, then I can say grams, I mean kilogram, maybe 2 pounds. Then I can enter like a specific value. There's no need to know the actual values. Maybe I can just say 2, I don't know, 0 points or anything, 2.2 something, or 2 actually, since I said this is an integer. So I can have these variables 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 4 possible variables. I mean 5 possible variables. So in this case, it doesn't matter whether you do double, all double, or all integers. So it doesn't matter. So this is like examples of variables that you can have. So as long as you show the understanding of these, that you can have these variables, you will get marks. Then the next thing, the next question is the next question is this one. So we have to study the above code and answer the following. So we have this small code. So we have private void btn submit click, then declaring variables, inputs, processing, then output. In your own words, describe the graphical user interface or the form of the above code. So in this case, we can see from this method, this is an event handler method. So from this method, we have a btn submit click. So this is a button. So we expect our form to have a button submit. Txt name, we expect our form to have a text box for storing the name, text box for storing the surname, and nud age, we expect our form to store the age. So in general, our user interface consists of like we can say label for displaying that this is name, then a text box for that name, then another label for the surname, then a text box for storing that surname, label saying its age, then a text box for that specific age. Then we have let's see, rtb output dot text equals to, then it has a rich text box on top of that to display the output. Then another thing that we have is the it's this thing, it's the button submit. So plus this submit button. So this is what you were expected to describe. So it was I think it was 1 1 1, I mean, but I don't think, maybe 1 for these two, then 1 for these two, then 1 for the button. So it's 3 marks. Then what will be the final output if the entered values are, for the name we have this triple A, then for the surname we have this triple C, then for the age we have 18. So now we have to execute. So when we start, we don't know the value of name, we don't know the value of surname, we don't know the value of output, we don't know the value of age. So let me do this. So let me just go to desktop or anywhere and just do this. Then I'm going to say main.cs. I guess it's fine, main.cs anyhow. So let's see. Now let's try to answer this question we had. So then we say name equals to txt name.text. So inside name we are going to store what? This AAA, since we have our AAA from our text box. Then line 8 surname equals to txt surname.text. In this case our surname will store what? This CCC or C again. Then our age will store 18 that comes from the numeric up down. Then we have the output. So when we start the output, so the output will store this name, right? This is the output. It's going to store name, then plus name. Our name consists of A. Then when it's C plus /n, it means move to the new line. So we are going to move to the new line. So it's going to be this. Our output will be new line, then surname again. So this surname we have here. Then it's going to put the surname. So in this case, our surname is 4 C's. Then the age, be after surname, output plus equals to, we are adding to the previous output. So our previous output ended where? On the CCC, immediately at the end of the C. So we are saying new line on the previous output, then age, something like this, then space, then we put the age, in this case it's 18. Then we say rtb output dot text is equals to, so in our rich text box we are going to put this. So the final answer was supposed to be this without the output. So the final answer was supposed to be this. So it was what happened? So it was 1 mark for each, 1 mark for this, 1 mark for this, 1 mark for this. Then yeah, I think that's all. Good luck with the revision test. It's not going to be that difficult since these topics are not really challenging. So yeah.